Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is your man, Big B. Welcome back to the Big 12 Insiders. We got Tim Fitzgerald here. Today, we're going to be talking about the Big 12 title game. Last game of the year, great year for the conference. It was topsy-turvy, tons of chaos. And you know I like chaos.
You do?
But literally, teams that you thought were going to be in this game, Fitz, were the worst in the division. And teams that you thought were going to be one, or at least one team you thought was going to be the worst in the division, actually was the top seed in the conference. It's absolutely incredible what happened with the Big 12 this year. To me, they're getting punished because of that, because of preseason polling and just thinking that one team's better than another. So no matter how good we think Arizona State or even Iowa State actually are, but because of the preseason polls, I mean, how long did it take Arizona State to even get ranked? Lord have mercy. I mean, it's just a nightmare of what's going on. But we knew it was going to happen. We knew the Big 12 was going to get treated this way, Fitz, and they did it. They did it.
I just can't imagine sitting in a room and assessing the value of a team based on a preseason ranking when they've proven otherwise on the field. It's almost like every time they bring up Arizona State, someone says, but what about that preseason ranking? They're no good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's whatever negative value can be attached to a Big 12 school, they're going to do it and
Absolutely.
leave out the positives and attach those to SEC schools. This has actually reached the point of absurdity when just unbiased observers can see what's going on here. And the only one buying this bull crap is SEC fans who are trained to listen to every hypothetical dog whistle their leadership will throw out there as an argument why their entire conference is better than the Big 12's entire conference. And
right.
It's nonsense, and it's been proven wrong on the field. And now the SEC is determined to only schedule Big 10 teams so you can forever not disprove it. And that shows a level of insecurity I think is notable by the SEC.
It absolutely is. It's just silly, some of the stuff that's going on. And people know it, like the constant ranking of SEC teams. So when somebody beats them, you can say, oh, well, they beat a ranked team. Like Missouri has no business being ranked whatsoever. You know, stuff like that. It's just like, come on, man, what are we doing? Or they hold it against Arizona State for losing a football game when their starting quarterback didn't play in the game. However, if that were Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Ohio State, Penn State, they would get all kinds of grace and say, yeah, I know they lost, but their starting quarterback didn't play. Does that game really even count? Arizona State, they hold their feet to the fire for it. It's just crazy. But we can go on about that all day if we want to.
I got one more. I got one more that's really bugging me. In the Big 12, if you are a contender, one of the top schools, and you play a close game, you're not that good.
Yes.
Georgia almost loses to Georgia Tech. They need, 8 overtimes to beat a lesser team on Georgia's home field? They go up 2 spots.
Yep.
Can we stop this? This is just stupidity at this point. I think Greg Sankey literally picked this committee.
Probably. Makes sense. Probably runs everything else in college football.
Yep.
I don't see why we wouldn't say he's doing this too. So it is what it is. But you know what? Let's get to the game. Before we do, everybody remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to leave those comments. We just went over 3,000 subscribers. We appreciate that. That was the goal by the end of the season, to get to 3,000 subscribers, and you guys made that happen. So I really do appreciate that. But let's get to this game, man. Arizona State, Iowa State. You know, for all the hubbub about the college football playoff and this and that, I really think this is going to be a good football game. I think these are two pretty evenly matched teams, and I think that this is going to be a hell of a football game, Fitz. It's going to be tough, battle in the trenches, but I think it's going to be a good football game, better than what a lot of other people are going to expect.
You know, you really can't judge who the best team in the conference is or the best teams until it all boils out. And I think over the long play, these were clearly the two best teams, even though they were in a four-way tie for these two spots.
Right.
These two schools, these two football programs had the most consistency to them throughout the year. They seem to have similar identities in the fact that they play pretty good defense. They've got just enough weapons on offense. They're well coached, and interestingly enough, they're kind of the younger coaches. If I don't even know Matt Campbell's age. He just looks young. Certainly Kenny Dillingham has infused his program with his youthful energy. There's a lot going on here that could make this game very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. Jordan Tyson's out for Arizona State, which sucks. Absolutely sucks. So Arizona State's just going to try to run the football. They're going to just try to run the football down Iowa State's throat. Is it going to work? I don't know. Iowa State hasn't been. I mean, look, Iowa State's had a million injuries at linebacker. They got a few guys back, I guess, but teams have been able to run the football against Iowa State, but they've been pretty good the last couple of weeks. I know Kansas State didn't really do a whole lot on the ground against Iowa State. You thought they'd be able to, and they couldn't. So I'm looking forward to the game. I think it's going to be a smash mouth game. It might not be the sexiest pick for media members, but for me, I think it's a great matchup for people that actually respect college football and respect the Big 12. I think it's a great matchup. Some new blood. Isn't that what we've always been asking for and we've wanted? We wanted some teams that are not always the same teams that are constantly up there. Well, we got that in the Big 12. Now, are they holding it against the Big 12 because of that? Yes. But I thought that's what we wanted. I did. Apparently it isn't. But because now that Arizona State and Iowa State and whoever wins gets in, well, the Big 12 is just not good. It just, I don't know. Again, we talked about it. We could keep going on and on and on. What do you think maybe some of the keys to this game? Like I mentioned, Cam Scattaboo might have 40 carries.
Yeah.
In his football game. I also think Sam Levitt is going to have a big say in what goes on. But look, man, Iowa State, I think people underestimate their offense because maybe it's not the flashy, but there's only one school in the country that has 2,000-yard receivers. That's Iowa State. And Iowa State's been running the football a hell of a lot better over the last 4 game fits than what they may have done earlier in the season. I just see this game just being so close. But as far as matchups, I'm going to give the advantage as far as throwing the football to Iowa State when it comes to that, especially since Jordan Tyson's out.
Exactly. With Tyson not on the field, that just takes away such an important weapon. I mean, he is sliced and diced defenses this season, and it's so unfortunate. But there's something to be said about just kind of the balance of weapons Iowa State has and the fact that they have 2 receivers. You can't take one guy away.
Right.
And then they have a stable of running backs that can prove effective. And I've said it from the start of the year. I love Rocco Becht as a quarterback. Not always perfect, not always pretty, but he just gets it done. And he just fights. His image reflects on the entire team. And Sam Levitt's kind of the same way. These are 2 really good young quarterbacks where their teams have kind of adopted their style of play as a whole. This is a really interesting matchup.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Look, Arizona State's favored by 1.5. They should have just made the thing a pick 'em, to be honest with you. I mean, this again is how Vegas builds resorts. I get it. But to me, the game could have been a pick 'em. 49.5 is the over-under. I don't know about that one. It seems tricky to me. I'm leaning towards over. I'm leaning towards over because I think the game could be 28-27, somewhere in that range. 49.5 just doesn't seem like enough, Fitz. Doesn't seem enough.
27-24 isn't a high-scoring game, and it gets the job done here.
Correct.
For the over. It's crazy, but as we always say, Vegas seems to know things, and maybe they feel like without Jordan Tyson on the field, we're going to see Arizona State absolutely just pounded on the ground with Cam Scattaboo, something they're very capable of doing, and eating up clock and trying to suck the life out of the Iowa State offense, which will be I think, more explosive in this game than Arizona State. So without, their top receiver, the Sun Devils are going to have to, fish around and find some new tricks and stick to their identity, which is Cam Scatteraboo, who I'm going to say it, he's my favorite player in the league. He's amazing. I love him.
He is absolutely amazing. Switching gears with this title game, back in, I think it was 2014 was when the Big 12 didn't have a title game and Baylor and TCU got the shaft, and they jumped Ohio State. They played the last game. Baylor won like 55-7. TCU won like 55-3. Baylor beat the 9th ranked team, Kansas State, by 9 points or something like that. Or maybe it was 15, whatever. They won the game pretty handily. They get jumped by Ohio State because Ohio State played in the Big Ten title game, and they said, well, the title game meant more. Okay. Which we all know was BS, but it is what it is.
The final data point.
Yes.
So
then now 2024, we jump ahead, and they're basically saying, well, the teams that are in, if you're playing in these conference championship games, that's the only people that can change, that anything can change from them. It doesn't matter, about anybody else. And they're basically, and if you lose, like if SMU loses, they're out. Iowa State, Arizona State, they weren't in to begin with, but I think they could still have an argument with other teams with 3 losses. They're going to be out. Okay. BYU, no chance to get in. Colorado, no chance to get in. Not that Colorado, again, they're not on the outside looking in with 3 losses. BYU doesn't have 3 losses. So have absolutely no chance.
We just discussed this. We just discussed this before we started. How is BYU locked in their value when if SMU wins, that should raise BYU's value because they won in Dallas?
Yes.
It's like that game never happened, Big B. It's
And
like the committee don't even know that took place.
They're trying to tell us that. They're trying to tell us that some of these results don't matter. That's literally what they're saying. Some of the results that you saw, that was Houdini. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that they're doing that, and some people are okay with it. Just how can you be okay with that? But here's my question. Should the Big 12 just say, you know what? I understand this game's a moneymaker, but if they're going to end up hosing us, then we just need to get rid of this game altogether. I think this is kind of going to be the way of other conferences too, because they're going to say, look, if I'm going to get penalized for qualifying for an extra game and then I lose it and then you kick me out of the playoff that I was firmly in before this game, well, then why am I going to play it? It doesn't make any sense. And I kind of agree, Fitz.
I agree, but here's the problem. It's almost like you're playing poker, and you're just going to shove all in on this because you're cutting revenue by not playing that game.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're losing revenue, and you push that revenue in the middle, and now you're trusting that the deck isn't stacked against you, that whether you play the game or not, they're going to do this shit. Excuse my language. Because I think they will. So now you don't have that revenue and you still have the chokehold of revenue for the playoff. I never see the conference doing that, particularly at 16 teams. We had to use tiebreakers to get to 2 with a 4-way tie. So I think at the end of the day, they'll keep it, but you certainly make a good point that the committee seems to be saying, hey, Big 12, ACC, all you can do with your championship game is hurt you.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll take your winner because we're obligated to do so. But for the most part, we got to get more SEC teams in there because when they lose, they're better when you win than when you win.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so confused by this. I seriously, I haven't even looked at the membership of the committee, but I can't imagine there's much football knowledge going on here, or there's such embedded biases that they're not even trying to be fair at this point.
No. And you know that because of the way that teams drop. And you can't leave out the Big Ten either. Big Ten, it's the same thing. You can't talk. They talk about resume when it comes to Alabama. Okay, fine. If that's what you want to go, tell me Iowa or Indiana's resume. Show me that. Show me Penn State's resume.
And
Show me
Indiana's
that.
solidly in.
Yeah, Indiana, and both of them are solidly in. Penn State could lose this weekend. Doesn't matter. They're in. So if it's resume, what's Indiana's resume? Who have they played that's even any good? Oh, they played Ohio State and they got the doors blown off of them. Other than that, they didn't play anybody any good. And there it is. You could even go and say, okay, look at Ohio State. They just got beat. Michigan's terrible. Terrible. They threw for 67 yards in a football game, Fitz, and 2 interceptions. And all they could muster was 10 points. I don't want to hear how good Michigan is. They're terrible. And you couldn't beat them. But
on
yeah, they're
on your solidly
in this playoff. And it's resume for certain teams, but when it comes to others, based on what conference you're in, resume doesn't matter. It's unfortunate. It's stupid. But yeah, I'm for if look, I understand the revenue part of it, but and the deck being stacked against the Big 12, I understand that part too. But at some point, at least if you go and you have 2 teams, let's just say 2 teams are 11-1. And you don't play a conference game, are they really at that point going to say, well, yeah, you guys are 11-1, but we're going to put this team that lost 3 games in ahead of you? If we didn't have a conference championship game, yeah, you're 11-1. I get it, but we're going to put this team that lost three games 3 times. The results on the field don't matter, so we're going to put them ahead of you. Would they do that? And if they did, then everybody would know that it's an absolute. I mean, most sane people know it's a farce already.
Yep.
But at that point, you would really know, okay, this is a farce. They have no intentions on even being fair.
Nope,
no,
they don't. They don't. And here's the other thing is that the Big 12 would drop to 8 games, conference games, and then pulled the SEC stunt of playing one of those non-conference games in the middle of November. I can guarantee you, if Arizona State had a win over Austin Peay in the middle of November,
they'd be crushing them.
They would say that's a negative for Arizona State when they never, ever apply that to the SEC.
Correct.
Ever. I mean, that is a hypothetical. I don't like practicing in them, but there's a huge track record here of this different rules for different fools. And the Big 10 has been fooled into, the Big 12 has been fooled into believing that they're going to be given a fair shake when they're just getting shook off.
Yeah. Well, at least I like Brett Yormark fighting, because he's fighting. At least he's saying it out loud. Now, what that's going to do, probably nothing. But at least he's saying it out loud. I also don't like the fact either, Fitz, that, and I was on this bandwagon before, I'm not on this bandwagon anymore, is you have to go win games in the college football playoff to earn your respect. Yeah, I don't think that's the case. I understand that you need to go win the games to show that you can compete, but everybody else has just been given the respect.
Right.
Why can't the Big 12 gain the respect? Like, there should be no way in hell that Boise should be ranked in the college football playoff ahead of Arizona State or Iowa State and BYU. No way in hell should that be possible, because, again, strength of schedule, that matters. And if it does, they have basically just said that Boise State's one loss to Oregon is more important than anything that any Big 12 team has done all season long. And I don't care what anybody says. People can say whatever they want. If Boise is in the Big 12, they are losing 3 or 4 games. Period. End of story. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear that nonsense, because you're going to hear it from people. Oh, they would win the Big 12. No, they wouldn't. And we're going to find out in this college football playoff that they wouldn't either. If I get proven wrong, fine, I'll get proven wrong. And I don't even like playing the hypothetical football games either, because that's what they do to the Big 12. But at the same time, logic tells you that's what they did to the Big 12. They put Boise's loss to Oregon above anything that any Big 12 had done all year. And I'll stand by this, and I'll see what you have to say about it, Fitz. If Arizona State is replaced by Utah and Iowa State is replaced by Oklahoma State, or not Iowa State, BYU is replaced by Oklahoma State or Kansas State, they're looking at this conference totally different.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's two teams that they thought were going to be bad, happen to be really good, conference stinks.
Yep. And plus, I see a trap being set here by the committee itself to create a narrative in their favor. They're going to advance Boise into the quarterfinals where they will face the 5th seeded team in all likelihood. And keep an eye on who that 5th team is, because they're going to match that team up. This is interesting with the Big 12 in the first round as a 5-12.
Mm-hmm.
They're counting on them to advance and then take out Boise and say, look, the 5th seed just wiped out those two conferences. I can see that this is the narrative they're leaning into. But the interesting thing is I only think there's a couple teams that are a real problem for the Big 12. And that honestly is probably like Georgia and Oregon. Maybe Texas. I don't know. They haven't been a problem when they were in the conference. I mean, they were good last year, but it wasn't a cakewalk for them.
No.
So in this world of hypotheticals, hypothetically, if the Big 12 can take out that number 5 seed on the road, that says something. But that game is set up for the number 5 seed to succeed and to take out the Big 12 so that they can say, told you so. Well, yeah, you put them at the worst slot against the best possible team, probably on the most hostile road environment. Congratulations for, fixing the deck before it's shuffled. It's nuts. That didn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's nuts, but here we are. This is Big B. This is exhausting because they're not even being coy about it at this point. Nope. They're like arguing with a child right now. This committee's like, I know you are, but so are you, or whatever it is. They're just like arguing in circles. It makes no sense. But it's the world in which we live, and now the Big 12 has to find a way to solve it. And it's not going to be easy outside with just the bowl structure, because now they're going to match up two of the best teams of the Big 12 against each other where they can't prove they're better than another conference.
Yeah, which is weird in itself.
That's the Alamo Bowl. Yep.
We're correct. That's what it's going to be. But, oh, well. Look, I'm just looking forward to a really good football game tomorrow and showcase what the Big 12 actually is, get some of this off of our back, and then go do some damage in the college football playoff, whoever it is. But I will pin you down, Fitz. Who do you like tomorrow?
I like Arizona State. And that's nothing against Iowa State. As I mentioned, I'm a big believer in Cam Scatterbo. Arizona State has run the ball with decent success against everyone. Kansas State was an exception, but Cam Scatterbo is so good and he's so dangerous and he's so physical that you always have to commit those resources to stop him, even if you are stopping him, because the second you back into zone coverage, he's running through your secondary. So I think he's a real problem. Tyson being out hurts them. But I think they've got some other guys at receiver that will step up into the void. I mean, they just haven't been targeted very often because they don't need to. They've got someone really good who gets open and they get him the ball and he makes plays. But at the end of the day, I think Arizona State's going to win this. It's going to be a highly competitive game. It should be a pick 'em. I probably would pick the over in Arizona State, but man, I'm looking forward to it. But you know what I'm really looking forward to? I'm really looking forward to this, Big B. I told you my day's plan, so I'm excited about that. I'm going to get home from my little road trip, and hopefully by 7 p.m. tonight Central Time, sit down with some snacks that I just got, and maybe a drink, maybe a cold one, and my wife's out of town, and I'm going to watch that Mountain West Championship and be the biggest UNLV fan that has ever existed on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Just because I'm tired of this. I'm tired of it. Boise State's a great team, but for their level. But what they did against Wyoming was the equivalent of basically Ohio State losing at home or Georgia going to overtimes with Georgia Tech. Yeah, I mean, you won that game, but really you struggled with Wyoming. Really. We'll see how it plays out. It's a huge weekend. It's going to be a fun weekend. Again, I'm all on board with two things. One, that it's going to absolutely be a great weekend of college football. And two, brother, sign me up for that chaos.
Oh, jeez. You beat
Sign
me to it. You beat me to it. I just, whatever is the most chaotic thing that needs to happen, that's what I'm rooting for. So whatever upset you might think is out there, that is exactly what I'm rooting for. Chaos, chaos, chaos. And then let's just see where the bodies are buried at that point, because we're going to know. So I appreciate everybody being in here and tuning in with this, man. And good show. Thank you, Fitz, for joining. Again, everybody like, follow, continue to subscribe, and hit those comments like you always do. I appreciate you guys. Thank you, and we will talk to you guys next week.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.